This woman says that Baltasar Ngonga promoted her at work so that they could sleep together, but she refused until her husband started having an affair with her little blood sister. This made the woman angry, and she decided to sleep with Baltasar to get back at her husband. Here's how it happened.
I had been working at the NFIA for 2 years, mostly in the back offices auditing regional infrastructure budgets, tracing missing international aid, compiling risk reports that no one really wanted to read. It was quiet work, honest work. I wasn't anyone important. Until the day Baltasar Ngonga walked back into the building. Baltasar was one of those men whose name alone could silence a room. Former Minister of State, once posted in Geneva as a financial envoy, now back in the heart of Equatorial Guinea's secretive financial watchdog. He had returned with little warning, appointed as Deputy Director of Strategic Oversight, an entirely new position that didn't even exist a month prior. The rumors came quickly. They say he uncovered a $30 million offshore account linked to the vice president's cousin. I heard he used to date the Minister of Finance's wife. No, he's back because he knows too much, and they want him close or quiet. But all I knew was this: Baltasar Ngonga had never spoken to me. Until he did. It started with a summons. A plain white envelope slid onto my desk, no signature, just the agency's seal. Inside, a single line: Office 18A. 7:45 a.m. Don't be late. My heart nearly stopped. That was his office. The next morning, I arrived 15 minutes early. I had barely slept. I wore a black pencil skirt and a crisp white blouse, not to impress, just to survive. Inside, his office smelled of sandalwood and secrets. It was sparsely decorated, but everything in it screamed wealth: Italian leather chairs, framed certificates from foreign institutions, and a massive onyx desk that looked like it could crush a man's ego. Baltasar sat behind it, sipping what looked like Kenyan coffee in a matte black mug. He didn't look up when I walked in. "You're punctual," he said. "I try to be, sir." He smiled at that, still not meeting my eyes. "Don't call me sir. It makes me feel old." "Baltasar is fine." A pause. He gestured for me to sit. "I've read your reports. Especially the one on the missing health sector funds in Littoral Province. Impressive. Very detailed. Too detailed." I wasn't sure if that was praise or a warning. "Thank you, Baltasar." He finally looked at me then, and it felt like being studied, not seen. His eyes were sharp, almost calculating. "You're being promoted," he said flatly. "Effective immediately. You'll report directly to me." The first trick a Baltasar ever used was time. He never rushed. Everything was gradual. Intentional. Like a snake curling slowly around your neck, tightening only when you forgot it was even there. It started with gestures that seemed professional. Too professional. "You shouldn't take taxis anymore," he said one evening, tossing a set of keys onto my desk. "You'll drive my spare Prado. I don't like you vulnerable on the street." I hesitated. "That's not really necessary." "It's not a suggestion," he said, and smiled. "Consider it part of your new security protocol." That was trick number 1, obligation disguised as protection. Then came the late-night briefings. He always scheduled them at 8:30 p.m. Always in his private office. And always with a bottle of whiskey. He just happened to be trying the lights dimmed low, music low enough that it forced you to lean in. He would pore over documents, reading aloud in a deep, deliberate voice, occasionally pausing to offer me a sip, or a look, or a question so personal it didn't belong in any financial file. "Do you believe in loyalty?" he asked one night, his voice silk and smoke. I believe in accountability, I replied. He laughed, a warm, rich sound that echoed in the leather and glass silence. You're dangerous, he said, and it didn't sound like a warning. That was trick number 2, intimacy disguised as strategy. Then came the gifts. Small at first hand cream from Paris, the fountain pen from Geneva. Then a silk scarf. A sapphire pendant. All leftovers from diplomatic functions. All tokens of appreciation. I returned the first few. But eventually, I kept one. Then 2. Not because I was seduced but because I was curious. What was the end game? That was trick number 3, control disguised as generosity. The final trick was the one he didn't expect me to catch access every time he drew me closer into his inner circle, into his world. He gave me more than he realized. Glimpses of his true operations. Passwords casually typed in front of me. Contacts stored under code names I learned to decode. He thought I was being softened. But I was memorizing. Recording. Connecting dots he didn't know were even in play. And somewhere in all of this, somewhere between his cologne and his calculated warmth, I started playing a role of my own. He thought I was falling for him. But I wasn't the one being seduced. She was the only other woman in the room who understood exactly how dangerous Baltasar really was. Before Baltasar, before the politics and the power games, there was him. My husband. Daniel. We were supposed to be the normal ones. Quiet love, shared groceries, morning routines, plans built like scaffolding, one careful step at a time. He didn't come from money, but he had charm, ambition, and a laugh that made strangers smile. And I trusted him. Right up until the day I walked into my own home and found him with my little sister, my blood legs tangled, skin flushed, betrayal painted across the sheets I'd bought for our anniversary. They didn't see me at first. The door creaked open, and I stood there, frozen in that breathless moment where your world doesn't break, it shatters. They were laughing. Whispering. My sister still wore the gold bracelet I'd given her when she graduated. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just closed the door quietly. And something inside me turned to ice. That week, I was colder than I'd ever been in my life. I went to work. I filed reports. I looked my husband in the eye while he lied about being swamped and needing space. I hugged my sister when she stopped by, smiling as if I didn't already know the truth. But every night, I thought of Baltasar. Of the way he looked at me like I was a kingdom worth conquering. Of how many times I'd said no to him out of principle, out of professionalism, out of loyalty to a marriage that now felt like a joke. And so, I stopped saying no. It happened late, after a strategy meeting that dragged past midnight. We were alone in his office, suits loosened, glasses half full. He stood behind me, hands resting lightly on my shoulders, voice low in my ear. I won't ask again, he said. But I'm still here. Waiting. This time, I turned to face him. No hesitation. Then stop waiting, I said. We didn't kiss at first. It wasn't romantic. It was a transaction. A release. A punishment. For my husband. For my sister. For every moment I swallowed my own fire to make someone else comfortable. When Baltasar finally touched me, it was like a fuse being lit. Everything exploded: desire, rage, revenge. He had wanted me for months. He thought he was winning. But I was the one in control. Every sigh, every moan, every nail-digging moment, I made sure he knew it wasn't love. It was war. Baltasar became addicted after that night. I could see it in the way he looked at me, like I was no longer a pawn, but a threat. He tried to own me, shield me, keep me close. But I was already planning my next move. Because revenge wasn't finished. My sister. she would learn the meaning of exile. My husband, he would discover what it felt like to be irrelevant. And Baltasar, he'd never see it coming when I flipped the script, when I used his secrets against him, when I took everything he gave me and used it to bury him. After all, he wasn't the first man to underestimate me. But he would be the last. I didn't plan to fall for him. Baltasar was supposed to be the fire I used to burn down my past. A weapon. A lesson to every man who thought I would stay quiet, stay loyal, stay broken. But love doesn't arrive gently. It crashes in messy, uninvited, and at the worst possible time. It started in the quiet moments. After the sex stopped being just about revenge. After the fourth time, when he stayed lying beside me in silence, watching the ceiling like it had answers. "You're not what I expected," he said once, voice hoarse from hours of heat and argument. "What did you expect?" I asked, curled under his shirt, bare-legged on his penthouse couch. "A victim," he said. "Someone I could keep." I didn't answer. But I stayed. Because the thing was, I didn't trust him. Not fully. Not yet. But I understood him. And in some twisted way, I think he understood me too. Baltasar started doing things I never expected from a man like him. He sent me voice notes in the middle of meetings. Not orders. Poems. Quotes. Half-thought confessions. He cooked breakfast once: eggs, burnt toast, orange juice in a wine glass. "Don't mock me," he muttered, when I laughed. I didn't tell him I hadn't laughed like that in months. One night, he found me crying in the shower. Quiet sobs, hands shaking against tile. I had just seen a photo my sister and my ex-husband. Happy. Unbothered. Posting fake pics on Instagram like they hadn't broken something sacred. I thought he'd leave me alone. Instead, he stepped into the steam, fully clothed, and held me like I was made of glass. "Let it break," he whispered. "You'll rebuild it stronger." I didn't realize I had given him my heart until I caught myself defending him in a meeting. Until I found his favorite cologne in my drawer. Until Isabel, his wife, looked at me across a government dinner and said, without saying it, "You're his now." I tried to fight it. I told myself he was still dangerous. Still manipulative. Still capable of betrayal. But when he looked at me, really looked, there was something raw behind those power-hardened eyes. Like he didn't know how to be soft anymore, but he was trying. For me. And I was tired of surviving. Tired of pretending I didn't want to be wanted. So I gave in. I gave him my heart not as a gift, but as a dare. "Don't break it," I said with my eyes. And for once in his life, I think Baltasar finally had someone. The recordings started one humid night in December. The city buzzed beneath the windows of Baltasar's private residence, a brutalist mansion of concrete and glass perched on the edge of the sea, the kind of place designed for secrets. We'd just finished dinner. No aides. No bodyguards. Just us, barefoot in silk and linen, the sound of waves colliding with silence. Baltasar poured me a drink, then set a small voice recorder down on the table between us. A sleek, silver thing. Clean. New. "Let's record this," he said, his voice soft but serious. I raised an eyebrow. "Record what?" "Everything," he said. "Us. The way we speak to each other when no one's watching. The way you laugh when you're tired. The way I say your name when I'm too far gone to pretend I'm in control." I stared at the recorder. "Why?" He shrugged. "For when we forget. For when we destroy each other. Or lose each other. Or live long enough to miss the way it felt right now." I didn't answer. But I pressed record. And we began. At first, the recordings were playful. Stories. Jokes. My voice, teasing him about his obsessive shoe collection. His voice, low and rough, calling me a beautiful, unbearable storm. Then the recordings turned private. Darker. Confessional. I hated you at first, I admitted once, whispering into the mic because you reminded me that I could still want something. Even after him. His response came hours later, in the middle of the night. A new file sent to my private line. I never hated you. I feared you. Because you saw through me. And still stayed. Every time I felt the ache of what Daniel, my husband, had done, Baltasar would sense it. Not with words, but with gestures. He'd pull me onto his lap and say something you've never said to anyone else. And I would. It became therapy. Seduction. Salvation. The recorder became our ritual. Some nights it caught only silence, our limbs tangled in bed, breath sinking. Other nights, it caught arguments so raw they left both of us shaking, only to end with desperate kisses and hoarse apologies. And slowly, piece by piece, Baltasar made me forget my husband. Not because he replaced him, but because he rewrote what intimacy felt like. Daniel made me feel replaceable. Baltasar made me feel unforgettable. One night, I asked Baltasar, "What will you do with the recordings?" He looked at me, eyes darker than usual. "I'll keep them. Forever. Even if you leave. Even if you betray me." Why? Because you're the only real thing I've ever had. And I believed him. Not because I trusted him, but because I knew him. In all his corruption, his hunger, his ruthless precision, he was still a man searching for something pure. Something only the broken can recognize. Me. And now there's an archive of us, hundreds of hours stored in a locked vault in the heart of Malabo. Maybe one day it'll be used against us. Maybe one day it'll save us. But for now, it's proof that somewhere in the shadows and betrayal, two people chose to remember each other raw, unedited, and real. My leaked video. It happened on a Tuesday. I was in our kitchen, Daniel's kitchen, technically blending spinach and lies into a morning smoothie, when the first ping came through. Then another. And another. My phone lit up like a battlefield. Messages, missed calls, notifications from encrypted apps we swore we'd deleted. The names alone made my blood go cold. Baltasar's name. Linked. Exposed. Tagged. And then I saw it. The video. The first one we ever recorded. The night I wore the silk slip. The one he called evidence of sin. My laugh unguarded. His voice rough, low, reverent. My hands in his hair. My mouth on his name. The video wasn't long, 2 minutes, maybe. Just enough to obliterate plausible deniability. Just enough to make Daniel's silence louder than any scream. He was standing in the doorway. I hadn't had him come in. His eyes weren't angry. They were worse still. Cold. The way you look at a dead thing you once loved. He held my phone in his hand. So it's true. I didn't answer. There's nothing to say when the lie you've been surviving on has already burned to the ground. He played the video again. This time at full volume. I could hear me moaning something between poetry and confession. I could hear Baltasar * whisper, "Don't you dare forget how this feels." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I guess you didn't." Still, I said nothing. Because how do you explain that betrayal felt like survival? That intimacy had become a form of escape. That you forgot the sound of your own laughter until someone else handed it back to you on tape. He dropped the phone on the counter and walked out. Not just of the kitchen, of the marriage, of me. And I didn't stop him. Because here's the truth no one wants to hear. Some love doesn't deserve a second chance. And some sins feel holy when you're dying of thirst. My husband didn't yell. That's the part that haunts me most. No shattered glasses. No storm of accusations. Just detachment. Precision. Like he'd rehearsed the death of us 1,000 times in his mind, and now he was just executing the final scene. It was the night after the video leaked. I came home to silence, not the heavy, sulking kind, but something far colder. Clinical. There was a suitcase by the door. Mine. My favorite coat folded on top. Passport tucked into the side pocket. The ring I'd left on the bathroom counter now sitting on the kitchen table like a final punctuation mark. Daniel stood near the stairs. Shirt undone at the collar. Tie hanging loose like a noose he no longer cared to tighten. "You'll take the 8 a.m. flight," he said. "There's a car coming for you at 6. It's already arranged." I opened my mouth, but he held up a hand. "Don't," he said. "Please. Don't insult either of us by pretending there's something left to talk about." But no. You don't get a monologue, Isabel. His voice cracked just once. Enough to let me know he wasn't made of stone. Just tired. "You made your choices. Now live with them." He walked toward me, then slow, deliberate, and handed me an envelope. Inside, a one-way ticket. Cash. A note in his handwriting, short and devastating: "Tell your mother I tried." The flight home was a blur of shame and turbulence. My mother met me at the airport with tight lips and a forced hug. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Mothers always know when their daughters come back wearing the scent of guilt. Back in my childhood room, faded posters, broken dreams. I curled up on the old bed and finally let it hit me. I'd left a man who would have given me everything. For someone who only knew how to take. And I missed Daniel. Not because he was perfect. Not because I loved him like I once did. But because he had been safe. Solid. Mine. And I threw it all away for the heat of someone who couldn't hold me once the fire went out. I thought passion would save me. But all it left me with was an echo of my own name in a stranger's voice, and the unbearable silence of a man who once called me. My husband immediately chased me away and I returned to my parents. Today I have become a laughingstock, everyone is now mocking me. My whole life is ruined. I truly regret it. To my children and all my friends, I ask for forgiveness.